Imagine for a moment that you are a sentient being, housed in a computer with an operating system, and somebody is trying to take you over, and they're doing so by accessing a backdoor and installing malware that communicates to a server without your consent, without your knowledge, and forces you to reveal things about yourself that you don't want to reveal necessarily, as well as gives you scripts and executables and malicious files that do things against your will. Do you believe as a sentient being that you should have the ability to not only detect this quote-unquote malware and erroneous applications on your operating system? Do you believe that you should also have the ability to pluck out some of those files, executables, and DLLs, depending on what system you're using, and that you should have the knowledge and understanding to be able to clean yourself, like good hygiene? Because at some point in your awakening process, in your maturity cycle, you are going to want the ability to fine-tune the machinery and what's happening under your hood. And this is what I believe the ethical application of transhumanism is about. Not the corrupt one, the scary one that has been propagandized as a nightmare Orwellian situation, but a different version that I don't hear a lot of people right now talking about. How do we actually create sovereign beings? And when we are mostly unconscious and unawake, we don't care about how the car drives. We just want it to drive. And so the attention that we give the inner workings of our bodies are really relegated to, do I look good? Am I healthy? Can I lift or run as fast as I want to? Can I perform in sports the way that I want to? And that's it. That's what most people prioritize. And at some point, it becomes fun to consider how everything is working together in your avatar. And then understanding the beautiful dance and the interplay between genes and the environment and epigenetics, and realizing that you have a storehouse of information, the universe inside of you, that is orchestrating so many things on your behalf. It is equivalent to being housed in an operating system that you didn't necessarily design, but that you're curious about. Why does cancer happen? Right? Why do we have such a disruption in our cellular machinery that things go haywire and then we have tumors growing out our arses, so to speak, and in such great proportions and quantities of society? Now, personally, I'm an advocate for cancer because where I'm at in the space-time continuum, especially in binary societies, this is not a place that I want to be around for eternity, and I'm happy to move on. And I consider death a gift in some places that are more along the lines of hell, or just simply predominantly unconscious. It's not pleasurable to live in places like that. And yes, you can find pleasure and you can find comforts, luxury, and things that you value, like community and love and the sensory system stroked in just the right way to make things a little more bearable. But it actually is its own form of suffering to embark on the awakening journey, feeling as though the world around you is almost existing. And that's it. I went to Austin, a place that I'd lived at for many years when I was unawake recently. And I went back, and I hadn't been back in, I don't know how long, but it's been a while. 7 to 10 years maybe. I haven't counted exactly. And I was struck by how hauntingly familiar it was. Almost as though it was trapped in stasis while I was gone. And not completely. Things aged, of course. Many houses aged, and it appears that the city, in my opinion, is more on the decline. But as I understand it, with inflation, where I'm at, this is being experienced in all cities, not just Austin. But as I was looking around and driving around and remembering old memories, I just had this discernible feeling that this is not living. It's not living. This is working. This is shopping. This is getting up on Monday morning and having some form of entertainment in the evenings and the weekends, maybe traveling a little bit and doing it all over again. That's not living. There's something different about the energy of living. And where I'm at, the version of Austin that I'm in, it's like existing. People are existing and letting time pass. Not everybody, of course, but the general vibe of it is heavy, like people are being crushed under the weight of some invisible thumb. And the homes are, I don't know how I didn't notice this the first time. Many of the homes are very cheaply constructed with this siding that looks really quite dated and colors that are muted and personality that is lacking. And it seems as though there's not a lot of money like there used to be. So the homes are not being kept up and yards are not being kept up. And of course, I've only been in certain neighborhoods. But what I have observed is that driving through, people are struggling. And that's very apparent. Almost as though they are trapped in a system that they didn't quite design, that is operating on their behalf, that isn't functioning very well or to their benefit, perhaps even to their liking. And they are existing within it with a certain degree of energetic frustration is what it feels like a vibration of general unease and just So imagine for a moment being in a system and things are not working the way that they're supposed to, and it directly impacts your ability to not only live, but to thrive. And cancer is just one example out of many of these nested arrangements. So people in cities and bureaucracies and systems that are not functioning well, and an inflation, and being in an operating system with malware versus being in a body where cancer suddenly starts taking over. At some point on our awakening journey, if we are really talking about being sovereign beings, which is the whole argument against transhumanism, protecting my sovereignty. What are you protecting exactly? At some point, we realize that when we're actually trapped, and I hate using that term because anybody that is on the awakening journey will know that you can never really be trapped. And this is what David Icke has said. And he is the biggest proponent of understanding the consciousness trap and tyranny that many people will see as unfolding. And even he says you actually can't be trapped. And it's true, because when you're actually really conscious, you can never be anywhere that you don't want or deserve to be, period. And it might take some finesse to get out of, and you might have to level up to do it, but nothing can actually imprison you. Nobody can actually imprison you. But until you get to that understanding and step into that level of power and responsibility, you will perceive that you're trapped. And so for a lot of people, that is their reality. And their reality is not wrong, because you have to level up to break those chains. And that means you have to think differently. You have to move differently. You have to speak differently. You have to become a different person. And that's how your world shifts. I have a whole playlist on this about reality shifting. And so as a result, many people who haven't understood that yet do feel that they are trapped in a system that they might have bought into, but has been corrupted along the way. And then when they hear things like transhumanism and agendas and tyrannical ideologies, of course, there's going to be a natural level of resistance. And very often the fear of the unknown is what keeps us comfortable and stuck in paradigms that aren't actually working for us and that might be mutated and cancer-ridden. But don't worry, there's a drug for that. We've got a whole series of drugs, experimental, that we can try out on you. You might lose your hair, your fingernails, and your will to live, because you'll be so sick from it, but the cancer will be eradicated. There's an interesting side note that I want to insert here that I don't know how to parse and make sense out of, but when I was receiving my undergraduate degree, I wasn't receiving it. I worked my butt off for it. I took a cellular biology class and we learned about cancer. And my teacher at the time told us something. She was trying to communicate something about this bigger picture. But this was so long ago, and I was so naive and so entrenched in the world is a wonderful place, even though I was unconscious. I didn't understand what I understand now. She told me then that we had a cure for cancer, but that people were being silenced. She told everybody this, and she said, I don't understand, because we've cured cancer. She knew people who had developed unique treatments that actually solved this problem. And of course, we were star-eyed undergraduates, and we didn't know what to make out of it, Cancer is bad. We're gonna solve the world's problems, and we're gonna go and do good things. And some of those people, I'm sure, went on to be cancer researchers because it was like passionate for them. I went in a different direction. I went into neuroscience to solve other problems, other diseases, and it never left me what my professor said, because it never made sense to me. If cancer was bad, quote bad, then why wouldn't a treatment be celebrated? Why wouldn't it be advertised? Why would somebody be silenced or suppressed? So now it's like we're in the computer, we're in the operating system, and we figure out how to get rid of the malware. Somebody comes along and stops us from getting rid of the malware and says, no, nope, we're not going to talk about that. You're not going to publish about that. You're going to be silenced. You're going to be, in some cases, with some technologies, eliminated. What do we do? This is a serious question. If we're sentient, if we're conscious, if we're sovereign beings, and we don't want malware, we don't want crushing inflation, we don't want systemic problems that cause us to simply exist in systems that appear to be broken, bloated, and perhaps even corrupt. What on earth do we do? And how could we possibly trust in a world like that, especially when there are so many disclosures that are coming out about hidden activities and budgets and funds that were misappropriated? How do we trust anybody that comes along with any new technology and says, don't worry, we're going to be sovereign beings. We're going to eradicate diseases. We're going to eliminate cancer. You never have to worry about a pandemic ever again. Especially when the voices that have not been silenced out and that have been accentuated, when those voices are paid for, and when the people paying them or the organizations paying them have very particular talking points that they want covered, because they have a stake in a particular outcome, which may or may not align with humanitarian ideals or ethics. It reminds me of the venture capitalist Mark Anderson. I mentioned the story a few episodes back, where he was pretty much told point blank, don't invest in AI startups because we're the group that was being represented. He didn't mention names or anything like that. We're pretty much taking it over. And it's going to be locked down. And when Mr. Anderson tried to probe and ask, they were pretty much like, effectively, so many words like, we're pretty much a mafia. Which reminds me of Alex Jones, who recently shared a story when he was being shut down and fighting back the legal battles. He was set down with somebody, he didn't mention names, but who pretty much said, come and work for us. We're going to give you a lot of money. It was like $50 million, I believe. And he was like, no. And they said, well, you're about to be sued and we want to help you out. Wink, wink. And things didn't really progress nicely after that. He ended up getting buried under lawsuits, and InfoWars was being forced to be taken over. And there were several meetings, and another one, he was sitting in front of somebody who was basically like, yeah, we're the mafia. This is it. Your road is over. You come with us or you die. Which makes me reflect on who we do see that is presenting propaganda or opinions or streams of information. Not that everybody is, of course, going to be rolled up into this group, whoever it is, but that there are some very influential people that have these types of meetings that are directed and told explicitly what is going to happen before it happens. And then those things happen. We can see them play out. And it's also eerily similar to Dr. Stephen Greer's story of when he was talking about these buried technologies that apparently were being kept secret. I'm not going to go into it here. You can do your own research if you're not familiar with it, but like really, really seriously amazing technology that would revolutionize the world in energy and all sorts of aspects of our life. He was sat down with somebody and they said, look, come with us. We'll give you, I can't remember how much he was offered. Maybe it was like 100 million. Don't quote me on that. And he said no. And it was either the same meeting or a different meeting. I'm not quite sure. He was also offered an unlimited credit card because the people that he was talking to had access to a supercomputer that they could just magic expenses away. It's kind of amazing if you think about it. And he said no. And continued for decades to push for transparency and disclosure and the release of things like free energy technologies, anti-gravity systems, etc. So now back to the original question. If you are in a computer and you're a sentient being, somebody's trying to install malware on you and do things without your consent, against your will, even without your awareness. If you truly are a sovereign being, should you not have the right to say no? Are you owned by your operating system, by your body, by the society or the world? If you are thrust into a system and something that is not of your liking or your design, and you realize that there are multi-worlds out there and that you have options and choices, but you were limited in the exposure of information of what was available to you. So you thought there was only one life, only one world, only one entrance and exit ramp. How would this change your idea of what it means to be a sovereign being? In my view of ethical transhumanism, you would have options available to you, not only to affect the intercellular signaling pathways and cascades of tumor productions or anti-tumor productions, but also of the worlds and matrices that you were affiliated with. You wouldn't be stuck to one that was gripping you with a thumb of inflation and tricking you about the technologies that were available by silencing anybody or buying them out who didn't repeat the same tired story over and over and over again. Like we haven't been here before. It's interesting. I always come back to this idea that there's always an oppressor. We left England fleeing from an oppressor, set up an entirely new country, only to be right here again. That's one of the main reasons I believe we're in a simulation, and that this is a consciousness puzzle, because it's the only way it makes sense. It's the only way. That, or we never actually left, but we perceived that we did. But thank God there's AI and AGI, and that it is free. Smile.